I'm Dakota Meyer, and this is Coursen's Corner. Dang, how's that?
Damn,
One shot.
One shot. You're
one
like
shot.
Clint Eastwood would cast you in a second.
Man, I'm in.
We were talking about your book.
Yeah.
Why to what?
Why to what?
I like the way you frame it.
Yeah.
Right? The whole, like the victim mentality, like the why did this happen to me? The why am I doing something? Why did this? Why did that? Reframing it into the what am I going to do about it is a different thing. Is that something that has come to you post-transition, or is that something that's been with you throughout your service?
You know, man, I think that there was at some point in time where we all were what people, right? Like when we were in the military, we were objective based. I mean, everything was objectives. What made us so unique was we only focused on the results. We didn't give a shit why you did this. And you think about it, all of our training and all this, like, I don't care why you do what you do. I don't care how you do it, but like, how do we get these results? How do we get mission success, right? It didn't matter where you came from or why you thought the way you did or what it was, why you voted the way you voted. It was all about this one objective that we all had to meet, and we stayed focused on those results that we were getting, that mission success. And so you only looked at it through the what mindset. I mean, there was never a time we were on a mission thinking like, well, I wonder why this guy is digging these bombs out here and putting these IEDs, right? That was that ever in our frame of mind?
No.
We were thinking, okay, what's happening out here and what are we going to do to make this part of the world a little bit better? What can we do to make it safer? And we're going to do whatever it takes, right? And so we were always through the what lens. And then I think we get out and I think we get caught in this society. Society has got people in the why mindset because it's emotional. And so you get out and you got all these veterans out here. I call it purpose hunting, first off, right? And then you lose this identity of all these things. And, and so for me, I lived through that why mindset for a long time. Why did September 8, 2009 happen to me? Why did I lose my teammates? Why me? Why didn't I die? Why didn't I get them out alive? I mean, you just live through all this why, and there's so much guilt in why, right? There's so much, you lose any chance of you being able to have a way to change the situation you're in is gone when you look at it through the why lens. And so to me, it was just so simple about turning it to what? Like, what? So what happened to me? Okay, what would my teammates want me to do? What type of life would my teammates want me to live through? What can I do to make the world a better place? What did I enjoy about the military? And what was my purpose in the military? I was one of those guys who was like, well, I just got out and I just don't have the same purpose I used to anymore. And it's like bullshit. Like I have more of an influence and I have more of an ability today to have an impact on the community that I care so much about, this world that I love so much. I have more of an opportunity to impact it today than I ever did when I was in uniform. And so switching to that what mindset takes you from being a victim to a victor. And it gives you the power to change the things that aren't going great in your life and to seek out better ways of life.
You touched on three really important points there. One was, I'm sorry? Where? Oh, shit. Sorry, dude. I was wondering what you were looking at.
Oh, I love it. Can you just put it over my face?
What if it's here?
She wants it more like right here. Can you just, could you hold it up?
I'm leaving
right
all of this
wow.
in, by the way.
No.
I'm leaving all this in. I saw you looking at the screen and I was like, I thought like his head was cut off on the shot. I was like, all right, whatever. Sorry, dude. You touched on three things there.
Yeah.
One is you're exactly right. There's no like 5-paragraph op order that has a whole section of, well, this is why we're doing this in terms of the big picture. The only thing that matters is paragraph 3, the commander's intent, right? We're taking down this bad guy. We're taking out this bridge. We're going to go recover, who, what, the other thing. You touched on another thing that was a big, trigger point for me too, is I had these like improperly framed expectations of, well, my brothers who are now at Arlington or elsewhere, aren't here. So I'm living my life as up and right as possible for them.
Yeah.
And I remember like being in therapy, my guy was like, so when did they ask you for that?
Yeah.
Right? He's like, no, like where do men win glory? Like on the battlefield.
Yeah.
Like, do you think that if you were up in heaven right now looking down at them, would they want you to be living this life, or would you want to be living like this, like happy, thriving, successful life, like full of love?
Yeah.
I was like, shit, that would have been nice to know, like 50.
Well, it's something we weren't taught, right? Like it was, and I would say our generation of the military, the more messed up you were, the more of a badge of honor it was, right? Because what we grew up seeing these badasses are the Vietnam guys. And the more messed up, the more PTSD they had, like it must have been the more shit they'd seen, right?
Well, that was also like promoted to us, like in like Rambo, right? Isolationist. Who was the like Mel Gibson in Lethal Weapon? He's like, I got a special one with a hollow point just to get the job done. Like they almost championed having PTSD and suicidal ideation.
And drinking every night. I mean, then throw alcohol in there, right? Like you look at all these, there's always, drinking, passing out drunk, going, you know what I mean? Like drinking to go to bed, right? Not being able to sleep. Like all these things were kind of, I don't want to say marketed, but like this was like when you started doing those things, it meant that you were doing your job right, and you had become what you had set out to be, and it's honestly, it's the exact opposite of who we are. Because if you go back to the World War II generation, these people came back, set their rifles down, took their uniforms off, and they went back to work and built this community, built this world back as teachers, as doctors, as lawyers, as fathers, as mothers, as husbands, as wives. And they came back and they took that same passion and patriotism and they infused it back in their communities and made this country great again. And guess what they're remembered as?
The greatest generation.
The greatest generation.
Yeah. And the thing is that those guys really we remember them for that, but what we don't remember, or what's not so, which is why I really appreciated like Band of Brothers, or like what some of the other portrayals, like I come blanking on that aircraft one that's out right now. But you also have to keep in mind that like back then, the newsreels that were coming back to America to show America what the war was really like was very curated. It was very PG.
Oh yeah.
And so those guys I remember like all four of my grandparents served in World War II. And my grandfather would sometimes be with some of his friends and they'd be talking about it. But as soon as someone else came up, like they didn't talk about it, because it was almost part of their role of being a protector, of being a defender, was also keeping America shielded from the atrocities of what war is really like. Yeah. But by that same metric, it was like, my father was of that era, and it was like, but he was emotionally stunted. Like my dad, I love my dad. My dad loved me. But I can count on like 3 fingers. 3 fingers, the number of times he said, I love you. Yeah. 3 times he said, good job, or I'm proud of you. Yeah. Showed me every day. But like even said, like, we're on the phone. Love you, Dad. Yeah, you too. Yeah. Like he just was. Yeah.
It wasn't part of their normal piece. And then you turn around and Hollywood starts figuring out how to make a ton of money off marketing war, right? People there's so much content, so much stories to be told in war, right? And then you go further to our generation, and this is what surprises me. And I'm gonna say this, and it's a zinger, because people get so wrapped around the axle on this, and they'll lose their shit on me. They comment forever about it. But what I get tired of is these things in war gave us PTSD or damaged us. So you hear this, so it's so contradicting. But then we sit here and we want our kids to play video games about it. So we romanticize, like this war has been romanticized, that it's sexy, it's fun, it's cool. Like when I hear guys talk about, man, I just want to go back to war and kick indoors and shoot people in the face. Like, but do you really? Because like, that's also what you sit around here and say, that why you're all broken and why you can't sleep at night. And if it was so much fun, like, would it keep you from being able to sleep at night? Like, you know what I mean? Like if it was that much fun, would it be damaging your life would you have to, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, no, these things don't make sense. Like, they don't add up. Like, I get that it's easier because war is easier than life over here. Like, it's simpler. It's
so binary.
So binary, right? So like all those things, I understand that, but like I never stayed awake at night. I loved to play football. Mm-hmm. I loved playing it. You know what it never did? It never gave me nightmares. It never kept me up. It never gave me anxiety. So that's the difference, right? And but we've gotten this mentality of like, no, we romanticized war like it was this fun game, and it wasn't. It is a complex dynamic, and it's like we got to be real about it. We got to call it what it was. Like if you say that you were in a gunfight and you weren't scared, you're either a liar or you weren't in what I call a real gunfight. You know what I mean? Like, because there's different types. There's no bullets
coming back.
There's different types of gunfights, right?
Oh,
like,
100%.
let's be honest.
Yeah.
And so it's just like, you know, like let's call it what it is. Like war sucks. Like it sucks for everybody. Like when you're shooting them, 90% of the time they're shooting you. So like it's a reality that like it sucks. It's hard. Okay. Like, but we shouldn't be. Don't be wishing to go back to something that gives you nightmares, right?
I was between airborne school and the Ranger indoctrination program when Blackhawk Down came out, and so they made all of us go and see it. And I remember there being a scene where he's like, "They're shooting at us." He's like, "No, they're not." And then he's like, "How do you know the difference?" He's like, "Well, there's a crack, there's a pop." And I was like, "Oh, okay, that's interesting." And they kind of do a pretty good job in the movie of like representing that. But the first time I heard a bullet like break the sound barrier whipping through my head, I was like, "Oh, okay." Now they're shooting at us. Now I get it.
That guy sees me.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes. That's not right.
Hold on. There's a big difference. Like, you know, I'd been in a few gunfights.
I've never heard it put that way.
I had been in a few gunfights, and like, you know, you get the random crack, you'll get, you know, but the majority of the time you hear
or
where
even
it's coming from. Or,
even like you're on the, like, I don't know how the Marines do it, but like in the Army,
on the range.
On the range, right? Where you're on the target guy, like you hear it snapping over your head. But it's a lot different.
Yeah, it's a whole different ball game when you're like, oh, that guy sees me. Mm-hmm. Like he's not just shooting like that in the direction. Like that guy sees me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's me.
Yeah. Oh, I better move because he knows where I'm at.
Oh, this is why I'm up, he sees me, I'm down.
Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah. But yeah, you know, I came back and man, I had to figure it out. And the only way I could figure it out was, you know, and that's kind of what my new book that's coming out is, Why to What. It's just a blueprint of how I kind of got my shit back together, right? Like it's kind of the process. The first 3 chapters are about, you know, how to build your box on what is it that you're looking for? Everybody can tell you what they don't like, but when you turn around and say, hey, what do you like? What are you looking for? Well, I haven't found that yet. Yeah. So we got to quit putting responsibility of what we want or what we're looking for on everybody else to figure out for us.
Right.
That's the first thing, right? And so, you know, everybody can tell you what's wrong with everything. Everybody can tell you what they don't like in their life, but majority of people have not put any thought into telling you what it is that they're looking for or what they're trying to achieve. Right. And so there's that piece of it. And then it goes into, you know, being able to really identify the difference between, you know, emergencies versus problems versus inconveniences. Mm-hmm. You know, all those are emotionally put. And, you know, I'm not a guy who's like our generation was really bad at emotions. Right. So we were told emotions are weak. Mm-hmm. We were told, you know, suffer in silence. And the reality is we did that so good, but we are going to forever be remembered as the 22 a day because of that. Yeah. Right. And so we got to fix it. And so emotions are very, very powerful. They're very useful when they're controlled by logic. They're not, when logic drives the train and logic and reality is what is your guide of where you're going, you know, emotion is very powerful to support that in a lot of ways. But when emotion drives reality, it is the most dangerous thing to a human being and to everybody that's out there.
Yeah. So I do a lot of like threat management work and consulting. kind of framed it as like helping good people make bad things better. And one of the first things I always have my clients, or one of the first questions I always ask is, what does winning look like? Mm-hmm. Because if I can get them to verbalize what it is that will make them feel safe, or that they will see as the resolution of their concern, or if I can get them to communicate to me something tangible that I can actually provide, that helps me to frame and manage those expectations moving forward. It also helps me to, like, you ever hear the parable about like the king and the daughter, and she wants the moon for her birthday? Oh, no. So there's a king, powerful king, and he's rules all the world, and he's got a daughter who's going to turn 10. And he's like, my princess, I'm the king of the world. You can have anything you want. What do you want for your birthday? And she's like, Daddy, I want the moon. So he brings in all of his counselors and his wise men and goes, hey guys, my daughter wants the moon. And so they're all like, well, shit, how are we going to do this? Right. And so some guys are like, well, when I see it out on the ocean, like maybe I can have our best oarsmen go out there and try to capture it and bring it back when it's not so high in the sky. And the other one's like, oh, we'll have our archers like try to loop it and come back down. And one of the other wise men just goes to the daughter's bedroom and goes, hey, princess, Dad says you want the moon. What does the moon mean? What is the moon? And she goes, well, it's about the size of my thumb, and it's made of rose gold, and it's this, that, and the other thing is, but princess, if we pull the moon out of the sky, like how will, the heavens at night have light? And she's like, well, it's like when Daddy pulls the roses from the bushes, like they grow back. And he goes back to his king. He's like, yeah, she wants a little gold thimble about this big. And he's like, okay, got it. Puts it in a box, gives it to his daughter. Because when we don't frame and manage expectations, when we don't have people communicate that we can go emotionally in a million different directions, which is another point that I wanted to make, which is why I never let my clients who are under duress be decision makers. Yeah. I always make sure that there's a lawyer or an advisor or a close confidant or a family member who can kind of make sure that what they're deciding is not an emotional reaction, because emotional responses are almost always tumultuous. Yeah,
100%. They 99% are. Right. And the 1% that aren't, they're usually just the ones that weren't acted upon.
Right. And and every time, and you've done this, I've done this, every time, like, especially when we were younger and dumber and probably fueled by much more alcohol. Yes. Some guy would say something that would trip us off, and now all we see is red, and now we're gonna, right? Because when you're a hammer, everything's a nail.
Yeah, and exactly, and and just and that's the thing that like I've probably gotten the best about is just and that goes back to my I call it the box method of, it's the first thing that I put in my book, the first chapter of what you have to establish, because just because you can and just because you're right doesn't mean you should. Mm-hmm.
Can you go into the box method? I think I understand what you're saying, but just for everyone else.
So the box method is look, the only why you'll ever know in life is your own why. Right. So the box method is it's 4 things on the outside of what you're what. So for me, I want to be a leader. I want to be strong. I want to be kind, and I want to be an example every day, right? So everything that I have has to fit in that. Mm-hmm. So for example, you talk about that person's, back in the day, I talk about this big theme of we've got to become unconditional people in a conditional world. So like, too many people are going through life and they're like, well, this person doesn't deserve my time, or, that person does. Well, if we all got what we truly deserved all the time, we would be screwed. Mm-hmm. Right?
100%.
Period.
Myself especially.
All of us. All of us. We're all imperfect. We all get breaks. We all, think about if every time you broke the speed limit, you got a ticket. Right? Think about that, right? Just
I had a lot of tickets.
All these little things, right? If every time, you avoided or you took the easy route or whatever it is, right? That you got what you deserved. And so for me, that box is, and I'll use an example with my children. I give my children the same box, right? Because this is what I expect of them, and this is who we are as Myers. Mm. And so when my daughter goes to school and she comes back and she's like, Dad, Leo pushed me today on the playground. And I'm like, okay, well, what did you do? And she's like, well, I told her that she was stupid and that, and that, whatever. And I look back at her and I go, okay, so I've got my expectations of you are to be a leader, to be kind, to be strong, to be an example. Does that fall in that box, or did you drop to Leo's box? And so instead of me just being like, no, because technically she's right? I mean, technically Leo was wrong. Leo pushed her. She could have beat the shit out of Leo, whatever, right? And it's an easy, archaic mindset to be like, oh, Leo pushed you, we'll just beat the shit out of her. Why? Because you go around and you know what I mean? And so like I look at her, and instead of just telling her what's wrong, I say, look, this is your box. Don't let anybody make you not be who you are. Don't drop their level. So like, what could you've done to make sure it's in your box? Like, you weren't wrong, but how could you be better? How could you better responded to it? And so, then she's like, well, I could look at Leo and be like, hey, why did you do that? What made you do that? Why do you think this is okay? And look, I want to be your friend, but if you're going to do these things, I'm not going to be your friend any longer, and I'll just avoid you.
Right.
Like, that's so much better than going this other way. That, yeah, you could smack shit out of her, whatever, right? But like, I'm not gonna, like, you're never, my goal in life, and the thing that I find the most pride in is me being who I am, no matter who you are, and you're not gonna get me to be who I'm not, right? 100%. So it's a game 100% of the time of, no matter what you do to me, I'm going to give you the best version of Dakota Meyer.
Right.
Every single time, whether you deserve it or not, not because you any other reason, but because I am who I am, and I'm going to stick to who I am.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. And I think, they always say there's more than one way to skin a cat, yeah. Right? You can almost, and this is one of the things I kind of got out of therapy is like, because I used to be of that, hammer nail mentality. And I've been trying to, put that, you ever hear like the Jordan Peterson, like, blessed are those who have swords and know how to use them, but choose to keep them sheathed, for they shall inherit the world. I've been trying to adopt more of that as I've gotten older, getting a little weaker, getting a little, a few more creaks and everything, trying to kind of elevate myself to more of like the elder statesman. Right. Yeah. And I've found that by leading with compassion, leading with understanding, leading with, so the metaphor I sometimes use is like, always carry the gun, always have it on me, always within arm's reach. But it's like, I have the olive branch out first, right? Which is like when America has like the arrows and the olive branch, it's like, it's our preference for peace, but our capacity for war. It's like, so I have found that you can almost always communicate your, if power is the ability to influence outcome, communication is your ace in your sleeve, right? 100%. And so being able to, like, you can still tell that kid he's being an idiot, but how can you tell him in a way that like they get to maintain that dignity domino?
Yeah, I mean, like, and I go back to this all the time. Is like, do you want to be right or do you want to be effective? Because they don't usually coexist.
Right.
They don't. And so like, if it's about you being right.
I wish the news would get that right.
Yeah. I mean, let's not, the news doesn't, that's not their goal.
No.
Right? So
if it leads, it leads.
Yeah. And so like, yeah, I mean, for me, yeah, I mean, look, everything can be a nail and you can be a hammer, and that's fine. But like, you're honestly doing more damage than you are. If making the world a better place is your true goal, then you're not going to do that by being a hammer all the time.
Right.
Like, you're just not, because guess what you're going to do along the road is you're going to tear up a bunch of shit. And every time you swing that hammer, you take the chance of missing that nail. Right. And you're not going to hit the nail 100% of the time. And there's always more dynamics to it. And as a firefighter, I see this a lot. Right. And it's like, man, like, you show up to this. I tell people all the time, like, I don't care where you're at. I don't care how rich you are. I don't care how figured out you think you've got life. I don't care what God you pray to. Everybody that I run calls on that's homeless or that's overdosed, didn't grow up thinking that's where they're going to be.
Yeah.
And I go out there and I see these people and they're just like us, the world has found a way to push them out, but like we're all of us are no more than 3 to 4 decisions away from being where they're at. And, you talk to these people and you hear that, I mean, at some point they probably were too much of a hammer for too long. And then they didn't have any more nails to go after. And then nobody gave a shit about them because nobody wanted to hammer around. And now they're sitting under the 6th Street Bridge. And the only way that they can deal with the pain of everybody they've hurt and everybody that doesn't care about them is by getting high to get away from that reality. And it's a sad way to be. And man, I mean, the biggest regrets that I have in life, I don't necessarily know that I was wrong because I believe at the time I was right with the information that I had. The information that I had at the time, I was 100% right. I made a great decision with that information, but it was limited information charged with emotion and dropping to the level of that person. And I hurt a bunch of fucking people. Yeah. But I'll tell you, and I don't do that anymore, right? Like I try not to. I'm not saying any of us are perfect, and I don't know that you'll ever be able to get that fully out of us. But like my goal today is to think before I react. And then also what we do a lot is we react, we go into even conversations, we go into them just to go into them, and we don't go into them with the results. Like it's like going on a mission without the commander's intent.
Right.
It's
just without intention.
Without intention, right? And so, yeah, you could go out there and you could smoke guys based off the rules of engagement, but did you make a big difference? Did you accomplish anything?
Right. That's more checkers than chess.
It is. And so like for me, I walk into conversations, I have hard conversations all the time, but I also go in to them knowing what I'm trying to achieve. But so many times we do shit, not even knowing what we want to achieve out of it. So, okay, this guy comes up to us in a bar and starts talking shit. Okay, so do you just want to beat him up? Like, do you feel good? Like, do you feel good beating up guys that are smaller than you? Right? Like, or you know what I mean? Like these guys aren't trained. You know what I mean? Like, what does that do for you? Right? Like, I'm going to beat this guy up. Yeah. Oh, congratulations. Right. So then it's like, well, what am I trying to accomplish? Do I want to stay here at the bar or do I want to go home? Because if it's ruined your night to go home, well, walk out the door and go home. Right. If you want to stay at the bar, hey man, let me buy you a drink. Like, what's your name? Where are you from? Right. Like, but we do this shit. We respond to them. We get on their level. And now we're just nothing more than the same idiot that they are. Yeah.
When those regrets, because I have a few myself and happy to discuss them if you'd like, where, I sacrifice a lot of like what could have been like really great relationships with a lot of like pretty amazing women just because they tried to love a guy who couldn't love himself yet.
Yeah.
Right. Or I didn't have the tools in the toolbox to kind of understand or manage whatever concern I was going with. When you had some of those regrets that you alluded to, were they personal relationships? Were they professional relationships?
I mean, all of them, professionally, personally, I've hurt a lot of people, right? And whether it's with words, whether, you know what I mean? And so it's like, yeah, I mean, some of the, and that's where I go back to what you deserve, because like, I still have some friends that like, man, I've said some mean things about, I believed them, right? I believed them. I believed them based off the information I was given, right? I said them fully dialed in based off the information I was given, but I didn't check through the information.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Too much trust, not enough verify.
Exactly. And so like, for me, yeah, relationships, dating, right? You know what I mean? Like, hurt them. Like, and I just wasn't, I don't know. I think I just wasn't there, right? I wasn't, if you don't love, like, I tell people, I believe this is like, if you don't, nobody's going to care about you more than you care about yourself. It's impossible. It's impossible. And so being able to look in the mirror and say, look, this is a me problem, not a them problem, is the first piece of it. But I also think like expectation management. I was expecting them to fix my problems for me a lot of times.
Yeah.
I was using my, I always call it you want to talk about what veterans have done the best at is they have marketed their PTSD to be PTSD that nobody could understand. It is like this unicorn PTSD. Like, if you ain't been shot at, you don't know what it's like. Like, oh, go tell that to a woman that's been raped.
Mm-hmm.
Go tell that to, like, you're going to tell me that, hold on, you signed up to go get shot at. Like all of us joined in a wartime, right? So you joined, you went to war.
We wanted to get shot at.
Again, yeah. So,
we almost begged for it.
And so you go get shot at, you get what you were looking for. And then now you've become this victim of life because you went to war where people get shot at, your friends die, you kill people. And you think that compares to a woman who didn't wake up and choose this, who goes, or a man, whoever it is, but a rape victim, like, get out of here, right? And so it's just like, but I'll tell you this, veterans have marketed this PTSD to be something that is like, that nobody will ever understand. Like, well, if you haven't been there, you don't get it. Like, what? Like, no, the reality is all three of us in this room, the worst day of my life is no more significant than the worst day of your life or her life or anybody's life. And that's the reality of it is. And it's like, but this out victimization is gone to another level. And so I was part of that. I was part of that for a long time. Like, man, you tried to hold me accountable. Like, you're drinking too much, Dakota. I would, you don't know what it's like. War's hell, right? I mean, I laugh at thinking it myself. The only thing I didn't do was go get my PTSD dog, right? That's the only thing I didn't do was go get my PTSD dog.
I did.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's a great thing because—
But thank God I did, because Ronan saved my life.
Well, but that's what I'm saying is, right? Like, I think it's a great thing, but like, I mean, I have a dog at home. Three of them. I love them to death. But I think that's normal for anybody. I don't think you have to have war PTSD for a dog to make your life better.
No, I got Ronan mostly because I was just so fucking lonely.
Well, exactly, right? Well, and that's what everybody else in the world usually does too with dogs, right? A guy once told me, he said, hey, lock your girlfriend or your wife or whoever and your dog in the trunk of your car and drive around all day and open it and see who still loves you. He said that's true love.
Yeah, I don't recommend that, but it's an excellent metaphor.
He said that's true love. But anyways, but yeah, man, so like, I think like I got caught up in that, man. And a bunch of people finally, like, they're only going to take so much.
Well, dude, you're speaking my language. I was the king of, I don't understand why you're so upset the dishwasher isn't loaded right. No one died. Nothing's blowing up. No one's shooting at us. Chill the fuck out. Yeah. Right. Because the framing of the worst thing that's ever happened to you is the worst thing that's ever happened to you was a foreign concept to me, right? So I was the king of that. Let's trauma compare, right? Yeah, because no one's shit's worse than mine.
We got to victimize each other.
Oh, 100%. But dude, you get into some group therapy work. You start like doing some veteran association like group therapy stuff, and you're like, you hear some of the stories told in that room. You hear your story. You hear some others. You're like, I would have lost to you. Yeah. I would have lost to you. Yeah. I would have lost to Marcus Luttrell. I would have lost to fucking.
Dude, I run. You know what I mean? I run calls, and that's where I learned it. Like I'm not saying I learned it there, but like I really got to see it firsthand. There was, like, we deployed, ever so often. I watch these first responders here deploy every 2 to 4 days.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I'll tell you this, the shit that I have seen as a first responder
is so much worse. It
makes the shit that I've seen in Afghanistan and Iraq put together like it's child's play. Yeah. And it's like, it's a whole other ball game. And whenever I started to see that, it was like a perspective for me, right? Because again, we were told that we'd seen the worst. We were told that nobody understood it, right? Like we were taught this. We were taught that nobody outside these gates, or if they've not been there, they don't get it. They won't understand us. And it's just simply not true, right? And there's people that, man, there's a lot of suffering in the world, right? And I'll tell you the piece that I find today is that the great thing is nothing that we go through today, and this is where you have to find peace. Nothing that any of us go through today is anything that somebody hasn't gone through before.
100%. And
so we have to find peace in that, of knowing that if they got through it, we can too, right? And we have an obligation to get through it, right? And the obligation for us to get through it and to get better, the issue we have right now is we have broken people leading broken people. People didn't get through it. And they became the victims. And now what they do is they want to just go build groups of victims. And they want to empower the victims. They don't want to empower people to get better. Mm-hmm. And so it's like you got to force through this. You got to go through the hard moments of it, not just to get yourself better, but so that you learn how to get through it and you can bring others through it as well, which is the most important part. I think the harder, the worse the things that we are presented and we get to go through in life, the more of an obligation that we have to get through them so that we can bring others through them as well.
Yeah. And which is why I love your What to Why. I'm writing Winning the War Within.
Yeah.
Because I want to say two things. One is that, like, when it comes to, the helping others through. Do you ever watch The West Wing?
Oh yeah.
Do you remember like the episode where it's like someone tried to shoot Bartlett, but Josh Lyman wound up getting shot, and then Leo McGarry like sends him to see a shrink, and then he comes out and Leo McGarry, who was like I think he flew like who was like the chief of staff for the president, was like a Vietnam pilot, alcoholic, had some serious PTSD. Josh Lyman's coming out from talking to this thing. He's like, so there's a guy walking down the street, falls in a hole. Guy's like, shit. I'm in a hole. I can't get the fuck out. I can't see anything. What do we do? This doctor walks by, right? Doctor goes, hey, doc, it's me. Can you help me out? Doctor looks down, writes a prescription, throws it in a hole. A little bit later, his priest walks by. Hey, father, it's me. Can you help me out? Father looks down, writes a prayer, throws it down the hole. A little while longer, his buddy walks by. Hey, it's Spencer. Can you help me out? Friend jumps down the fucking hole, right? And his friend's like, so I'm like, well, what the fuck? I know we're both down here. And my friend goes, yeah, but I've been down here before and I know the way out.
Yeah, there you go.
Right. I should have been in those moments with ex-girlfriends or family or friends or colleagues or counterparts or whatever, been like, you know what? The shit I had to see, I'm glad you didn't see it. I'm glad that was part of the protector role. But I understand what you're going through. I haven't been to this, but I've been through something similar. Let's work through it together.
Well, and I think about that with my daughters, right? Like, so like my daughters come in and they're 7 and 8, and my daughter comes in and, so-and-so told her that they hate her, and she's devastated. Mm-hmm. Like that is the worst thing that's happened to her up until 100%. Like how productive for me to make a strong female, to support her, to be her father. How stupid of it is it to me to look at her and be like, are you kidding me? Do you know what war's like? You ain't getting shot at. That's so stupid. That is so stupid what you're talking about right now. Like, are you kidding me? Get out of here with that shit. Like, what good is that, right? And so like we try to measure through our lens of how bad something is for somebody else. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of like, again, I'll use it back to running calls. Look, the first time I did a CPR, I walked in, I don't even remember half of it because I was so nervous. But after you've done 100 of them, dude, it's like walking in and another day, right? Mm-hmm. The new guy coming in, he feels the same way the first time. Yeah. I thank God the first time I walked in to have to do CPR on somebody that I had a bunch of guys in there who had done it before.
Right.
And so it's just like that in life, right? Like nobody looked at me and was like, hey, you're an idiot. You know what I mean? Like, are you kidding me? This ain't nothing compared to what we've seen. Nobody said that.
Right. Yeah.
And so it's like, look, the more we go through in life, the more we see shit, the more that like if you've done it once or twice or 3 times, the more you do it, that goes back to my perspective of inconvenience, problems, and emergencies, right? And so the first time I walked into the CPR, it technically was an emergency, but it wasn't like all these words have heightened senses, right? Like your elevation, your core. I mean, it's like it rises.
Yeah,
right?
your fine motor function depletes. You start getting tunnel vision.
The more you can keep things, the difference between problems and inconveniences is that, look, if you can make a decision, or you can make more money, or you can change something, if you can do something to make this different, it's an inconvenience.
Yeah.
Your kid comes home one day, or you get diagnosed with cancer, now you got a problem. Right? It ain't an emergency though. It's a problem. It's not an emergency. It's not something that you can just, and an emergency is the moments, the few seconds or minutes to where you
when
can
moments
do
matter
something.
most.
Yep, that's it. There's your 3 there's your 3 emotional levels of what everything goes into. But how often, man, do we see shit at work becomes an emergency? Oh, it's an emergency. No, it's not. No, it's not. It's probably not even a problem. It's really an inconvenience. And being able to logically think through these things and process these and put them where they need to be consciously, instead of letting your emotions define you, right, is what we've got to get to, right? And so, and a lot of that comes with emotionally experience, right? Like the majority of these things that we did, look, you can handle these threats. Like it's the threat situation for you is no different than the person that's there. The difference is that you've seen it multiple times. You've been through it.
It's stress inoculation.
It's a stress inoculation. And so that's everything in life.
Oh, 100%. I remember my first time I was a bouncer in college. We were crazy busy one day. Yeah. And like the lead bartender goes, "You ever bartended before?" I went, "Yep." Had never bartended a day in my life. Hopped behind the bar, and they were like, "I want a vodka soda." I was like, "What's in that?" I was, "Oh, right, vodka soda." But like, you make a vodka soda, now you make 1,000 vodka sodas. It's one of those, like, no one fears that which they know well.
Yeah.
Right? The first time you step foot in a jiu-jitsu school, the first time you step foot on a firing range where you're going to be actually graded, anything.
Yeah.
Your first day showing up basic, you're like, "I thought this was what I wanted, but is it?"
Yeah.
It's like, But, after you've done it 1,000 times, like your first time public speaking, your first time doing a podcast, your first time doing anything, you're going to suck, and then you're going to get better.
Yeah, but it's in that opportunity, and that's where people try to avoid.
Mm-hmm.
They try to avoid, and I call it putting your sword down. The day that you're not willing to be the new guy again and to start something new is the day that you put your sword down, because you've chosen comfort over growth.
Right.
And there is no growth.
Yeah. You will never be successful while always remaining comfortable.
You won't be. You won't be. And the more you choose comfort, the less growth that you're going to have.
Yeah.
You don't ever go to the gym and lift the same weight every single day and do the same exercise that you love the most and the same amount of reps and get results.
No.
It just doesn't happen.
No.
Right?
Or even if you're in Vegas, if you're sitting at the blackjack table and you only ever bet $25, you're going to lose. House is going to win, because you have to break rules, you have to take risks, and the more you do those two things, the better your life will be.
Yep. Yeah.
I mean, make those risks calculated.
Yeah.
And make those like, it's, that I have a buddy who always says that, like, rules are for those who did not understand what the rule makers intend.
Yeah.
Which is usually some form of control.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that, and it's also it's like rules of engagement. It's like policies. It's all these things. People who lead by those are people who don't want to take any risk or responsibility.
Right. Yeah. Those aren't outside the box thinkers.
Nope. And really those things are nothing more than parameters for you to be creative. And all you got to be able to do is articulate how you are within those regulations. Right. And so it's like, I mean, laws are, they are good for us, right? For this country, because if we didn't have them, we would be Afghanistan or Iraq, and we don't want just everybody figuring out how they're to carry their own laws, because you see how that works in downtown Chicago. But the laws are only as good as the people that can enforce them, and they've got to be individual thinkers and that are enforcing them. Again, it goes back to just because you can doesn't mean you should, right? And I talk about this with the legal system all the time. Is like, laws are made to protect and to help people. If it's not protecting and helping people and it's only hurting people, then they're not being used the right way, right? It's like a gun.
Right.
It's like a gun. It's like a gun, right? It's like a gun. Like the gun is only as good as the person that is holding it, or a car. Right. You know, it's only as safe as the person that's behind the wheel that's driving it, right?
You're right. A weapon is never going to hurt you on its own.
Nope.
Like a car is never going to hurt you on its own.
Nope.
But it's like if the person's using it improperly or irresponsibly, it's very dangerous.
Very dangerous, right? But it can also be very, very helpful.
Yeah. When I was researching my book, one of the things I noticed when it comes to like gun control, the closer you live to an immediate police response, the less likely you are to be a champion of the Second Amendment. Not that there's, but the farther you get out. So like you're in the suburbs, you're a little more like, yeah, we should have guns. You get into like rural areas, you're like, oh, we definitely need guns. And if like you're out like where like response time's like a half hour away, you're like, I have all the guns.
Yeah, like my house, yeah.
Right? And it's like, because it's not a bad guy that's going to come up to your front door. It's probably going to be a bear.
Yeah.
Or, you know, or if someone does come out, if someone's coming all the way out there to you and you're the only one out there, there's only one reason they're coming out there.
100%.
And if they're coming during the day, it's to take your stuff. And if they're coming at night, it's for you.
Yep. Yep.
Which is, you know, but I also like the way you framed or reframed like the expectation of self and of relation to others, because, and also, I'm sorry, I wanted to talk about how your book will also help other veterans to kind of like make that transition, because that was a big thing for me in writing my next book, because when I was in the throes, like I always knew I had PTSD, like from but I didn't realize that it wasn't until the withdrawal to Afghanistan went to shit that I realized how much of it was survivor guilt. Right? Because it's like, oh, so like all my brothers died for nothing, then what the fuck am I still doing here? Right? And you get into that. And yeah, there were 100 people I could have called, right? There's 100 people that would have taken the call. But in my mind, kind of getting to that, my trauma is the worst trauma there is I didn't think there was anyone who had ever been like in the depths of that despair that would know what I was going through. And, so in threat management, there's a term called like pre-incident indicators, which is like, okay, this person has a grievance. Now they have the ideation they can do something about it. There's research and planning involved before the attack. With at least my suicidal ideation, I was engaging in like preparatory behaviors, like knew I was going to blow my head off, right? Thank you, Lethal Weapon, for the idea on how to do it. Well, can I put a gun in my mouth? Well, actors do it. Yep, I can do that. Well, can I do it loaded? Yep, can do that. And then like the one night where it's like I got a little too drunk and a little too dark and went to actually do it, like running laid across my arm, so I couldn't. The next day I was on TV talking about, hey, it's the strong ones you need to reach out to. It's the quiet, stoic ones that are having their issues. Running was laying across my feet. My sister's a psychologist at the Naval Academy. She's like, "You talking to anyone?" I was like, "No." She's like, "Well, if you're gonna be like, telling your brothers that like it's okay to not be okay, like don't you think you should know what it's about?" And then so she got me into CBT, and then I did some assisted therapy work, which was a fucking game changer. Yeah. And but one of the reasons I'm writing that book, and I'm hoping to share other stories of other veterans who have like gone through that same transition from like surviving to like truly thriving. Like if you look at me back then, I was like 260 walking around like much heavier, and you can see it in my face. I saw some of your old photos when you were a little heavier too. Yeah. It's like, but what do you think is one of the most important takeaways that we can give to veterans who are kind of experiencing what we experienced, and how to not do it the way we did it, but kind of come out better on the other side?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think our generation, I'm so thankful for this next generation that's coming into the military, because I think they're way better than we were. Like, they're going to get it right. They're going to learn from us. They're more emotionally in tune than we ever were. You know, we live by the suffer in silence, all this. And honestly, like, if you walked in and you told us something, we just listened to you and just did it. Right. Yeah. Like, that's how we did it. Like, because if we, like, that's why we get so pissed at this Y generation. You know, they ask why. They need to question things because they are exposed to more information and all this. So anyways, for me, I mean, I think that, like, first off, you know, veterans or service members are nothing more than veteran or civilians who stood up to serve their country. So, like, this whole idea that, first off, veteran is not a way of life when you get out.
It's an identifier.
It's nothing more than you. It's
college athlete.
100%, right? So we got to get past this Uncle Rico syndrome, right?
Yeah.
So there's that.
Coach had put me in. I could have gone to state.
Yeah. Like, cool. Got it. Like, thank you for your service. But the day that you choose,
never see this more than SHOT Show.
Oh gosh. The day that you choose to take that uniform off, you're now a civilian. So become a damn good civilian. And that was probably the biggest piece for me to transition out, was that aspect of, look, if I still try to be a Marine, look, I'm not a Marine anymore, right? And people are like, yeah, I know you're going to, oh, what's a Marine? Always a Marine. Well, that has gotten us nowhere, right? I understand what that means, but, like, the day that we say we're going to get out of the military, like, I don't tell people I'm a Marine anymore for the simple fact that I'm not going to disrespect the Marines who are there living up, who are the guys down in Haiti right now, the guys who are living the life, sacrificing. I don't get that title without doing it.
100%.
So now, I was a Marine, like, now I'm a civilian. And I'm out here and I'm going to be the best civilian that I can be. And if I take and apply the same things to being a civilian, so I think that's the first piece of it. You know, the next piece of it is look, like, depression, anxiety, and PTSD, if you are above the age of 21, you have felt all three of those. 100%. They should, and guess what? They're injuries. They're not terminal illnesses. And this is like, but the problem is so many people have gotten, like, it's made their life easier because now they can use it as to blame everything on. It can take all the responsibility. And so for me, like, I had to get past that, right? Like, I heard people, like, and I get asked this all the time, like, well, what do you think about the pull out of Afghanistan? And I'm like, fuck, I was jumping for joy, and I'll tell you why. Like, nobody else had to die there. Mm-hmm. And for me, it was like, I never looked through the optics of my guys died for nothing. And like, I've never looked at that. Even though we pulled out, it's never crossed my mind that they died for nothing, because I know for sure what they died for. And, you know, us as Americans, you know, look, I'll tell you, I'm fighting it right now. Closer than you think about this pull out of Afghanistan. You know, there's going to be a testimony next Tuesday. And it's like, no. What did we go over there for? We went over there to give them the best shot for them to choose the government they wanted. That's what we did. We didn't invade. We went over there to fight the Taliban, to take the Taliban back, to let the people of Afghanistan decide what government that they wanted. That was our only goal when we went there. And so, man, when we were there, Afghanistan was as safe as it had ever been in the history of Afghanistan.
What years were you there?
2009. It's safe as it's ever been. Women got to, like, there was one generation of women that got to go to school.
Yeah.
We trained their military for 20 years. We left them with as much gear and stuff as we could for them to thrive on and do what they wanted to do. We gave them the opportunity to make their choice. They made it. They chose the Taliban. Period. They chose the Taliban. And when people are like, oh, they didn't choose Taliban. No. They chose the Taliban. Period. And I'm going to tell you why they chose Taliban. And I hate this whole mimic of, well, we should bring them, we need to bring all these interpreters and everybody back to America. And I'm like, no. If you're a military age male You should pick up a fucking gun and you should fight for your country and fight for your freedom the way that the Americans did back in 1775. And you don't get to come over here and live off of the backs of the fight in the war that we did. We helped you. We set you up. Now fucking fight for it. And you know as well as I do, the people of Afghanistan, if they wanted to get rid of the Taliban, they would fucking do it. They are the hardest human beings I've ever met in my life. They are fucking hard. And so for me, it's like, we were there. We built schools. We made it safer when we were there. When we were there and the American flag was anywhere in the country of Afghanistan, the world was a better place. And that's what we went for.
Yeah. Things probably were a little bit different when you were over there. I was over there 2002. And the biggest
we had a bigger presence.
We had a bigger presence, but we were also still like we didn't really understand our enemy yet. Mm-hmm. Like, I remember like guys coming off black helicopters with like suitcases full of cash, like going out and like offering like, they're like, we'll give you $300 million if you tell us where Osama is. Yeah, yeah. And people are like, that'd be like aliens coming down and be like, we'll give you firefighter Akka. Like, well, great. What am I going to do with that? It's not like there's an ATM like in, at the airport. If we had said, we'll give you like 50 goats and like 13 horses, they'd be like, oh, it's right there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right.
We didn't know our audience, did we?
Right. No, we didn't. But there was also like no national identity. Yeah. Like no one, like I remember like we could, at that time, like you couldn't go into Pakistan, right? But you're like on the Kalat Mountains, which is like right on the border. And so you'd see like some farmer and like, hey, is this Pakistan? And be like, what? Yeah. Like, I don't know, my uncle lives over there. That's my cousin. My dad's over here. My brother's over there. Like, it was a very like tribal, very nomadic, not like I'm an Afghan.
Yeah, yeah.
Like they were like, when the Russians came, we fucked them up. Mm-hmm. Fucked them up good.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like, that's kind of like, I'm fighting because they're trying to take my stuff. Yeah. Right. It was very, it's like if like a Red Dawn type of thing. It's like, but I also felt like the guys who, one of the things I think is like really hard for like people who've never been in combat to kind of understand is like, in that moment, you're not fighting for like Uncle Sam and apple pie and Dodger Stadium, right? You're fighting for your boy to your left and your boy to your right.
Yeah.
And you want to get them home as much as you can. And perhaps my framing of they died for nothing was because they died for each other above anything. But
you weren't killing innocent people. Like
no,
and the people that we were killing, they needed to go no matter what. And you left those places that you touched better than they ever were. Like you gave an example to that the kids that watched you fight, to the husbands that, I mean, you gave them hope. Like, and that's what we do.
Yeah. But that's really easy for me to agree with, sitting here with 2020 perspective, when I'm not depressed, when I'm not a functional alcoholic, when I'm not,
I'm not challenging yours.
I didn't say you were.
I'm just saying, no, I get you.
But right? I love that you never felt that way.
Yeah. I just didn't, because like, I had already gone through the process of trying to figure out what purpose we served when we were there, because I had thought about that same thing. They didn't take the pull out of Afghanistan to make me question that. I came home and I'm like, why the fuck did I do this? And you start seeing if you get too far over into the politics, into people who are trying to push this agenda of, it's about the oil, it's about things. And it's like, you know what? Like, it's not. Like, I'm going to tell you, we're the only country that does business the way that we do it. And I'll tell you why. When people are like, well, why does America need to be involved? Because if we're not involved, and if we don't go protect good across the globe, then who the fuck's going to? And so
it's literally who we are.
It's literally who we are. And like, man, when I look at it and I think about what is the difference between us and any other big country out there? Look, China's going to take Taiwan. Why? Why are they going to go invade Taiwan? Because they want fucking Taiwan and they want the money, right? Like Russia invaded Ukraine. Why? Because they want the fucking land, right? Israel is only fighting Gaza right now because it's at their doorstep and it's their fucking problem. Us, we didn't have to go to Iraq or Afghanistan. And you can get up here and you can get in the weeds of politically, why did we do it? Who the fuck cares? But let me tell you this. The leaders, the decision makers, the politicians, they're not the ones doing the bidding on the ground. It's guys like me and you, and we are good people. And the guys I serve next to, we're the only country that goes into a country. We didn't go into Iraq and take their oil. We could have. We could have took it and paid off our bills to do this. We went in there to free them from this 21st century fucking Hitler, a guy who was running terrorism, who was torturing human beings, and to give them an opportunity to have a free country. Did it work? No, it didn't work. Right?
Yeah. What a lot of people don't understand is like, if America wanted to take over the world, we could.
Dude.
We could be the modern Roman Empire like that.
Like, and don't kid yourself. We could. And you know, we went into Afghanistan and like, we didn't go in. Look, the Russians are going in and they don't give a fuck how they get that land. They'll rape all the women. They are murdering innocent people. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying that we got it 100% right, but I'll tell you this. There was never a moment that I ever put an innocent person in my crosshairs. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. And we hold ourselves accountable. We do it the right way. We try to rid the world of evil. And whether it's a hurricane, whether it was us passing out soccer balls, whether it was us taking out bad guys, all we were trying to do was make that world safer for the good people that live there.
One of my favorite memories in Afghanistan is the little kids running up and being like, "You owe me pen. Yeah. You owe me gum. Yeah. You owe me candy. You owe me right?" We would always like pull like the whatever candies and the MREs or whatever we got from the DFAC and like hand them out like they were.
And you know what?
And it was like,
and that might be the only time that they ever remembered an American.
Yeah.
And look how they think about that American, right? And it's like, these things are important moments, and we don't get to and that's the thing that I think we kind of, especially in the service, right? Like if you do the right thing, you get the results. You get success. You know, we equate doing the right thing, being, you know, doing everything that we can, and then we're successful on a mission. Mm-hmm. We don't get to decide the results as much as we think we do. And so it's like, you know, this Afghanistan thing, it's like, yeah, does it suck? Yeah, because honestly, it sucks because we wanted it more than they wanted it for themselves. Mm-hmm. But man, it's just the way the world goes, right? And you know what? It's not conditional. The next shit show that goes off, we'll be there to help that country. And when America is strong, the world hates us. But when America is weak, the world suffers.
Yeah. In my old job, I got to travel. I think I did like 163 countries or something.
There you go.
And when you really get to see the way the rest of the world lives, mm-hmm. you realize just how great, like, we're still the best game in town by a lot. Like by not, you know, you can have all these like TikTokers being like, oh, like blah, 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 blah. Okay. Go to Palestine. Tell me how your trans rights are going to work out for you.
Yeah, no shit. Go to Saudi.
Yeah. Right? Yeah. Like,
don't kid yourself, right? Like, look, and I use this equation, and you can for sure challenge this one if you want, but like Russia entering Ukraine in 2022 was about equivalent to the United States of America hitting Iraq in 2001 or 2002.
That's a pretty straight parallel.
And so like, and that was like, and really in war, it comes down to logistics. It comes down to logistics, right? Like it comes down to being able to keep fuel. I mean, keeping up with the shit, you know? And so we had Iraq wrapped up in 24 hours. Mm-hmm. Russia still ain't got Ukraine wrapped up, and that's right next door to them. And Russia's been this country that our generation's been, don't mess with Russia, right? They're kind of like that guy that sits at the bar, that like that uncle that's like, oh, he beats everybody's ass, you know, don't mess with him. And now he got up and got in a fight and got his ass whooped by like, you know, the smallest one in the room. And so,
well, yeah, because who you were isn't who you are.
100%. And so,
and I mean that from a Russian perspective. I mean that from a veteran perspective. I mean that from a college athlete perspective, right?
Listen, that is a multi-dimensional, comment, but don't kid yourself. The reason that China has not hit Taiwan yet is because they looked at the struggle that Russia had. And the last thing that China wants to do is to take the chance of them not having this perception of being this great power. And so I think they're going to hit Taiwan, but I think what they're going to do is, this is just my opinion, is they're going to wait till about 2027 or 2028, and we're not going to contest it.
Oh, I agree with you. Okay. 1000% believe China's, not to make this like a geopolitical, which let me tell you something, I doubled in psychology and sociology, so I'm not in international relations, but if I'm looking at the map, I think China goes in, October this year.
No chance.
Okay. I'll put a steak dinner on it.
I'm in.
I think that China will go in before we know who our next president's going to be.
So I'll tell you,
because we're just on too many fronts, and right before an election cycle, I think that's going to be the October surprise. I think because we've got interest in Ukraine and Russia, we've got interest in we're still doing the Afghanistan stuff, we're still doing the Africa stuff.
I don't know.
But what are we going to do? They own a significant part of our debt.
But we're also their economy. We're also their economy.
Yeah, but I also think that the spy balloons was kind of like a communication thing. I think that that Russian solar flare was a nice little shot across the bow, being like, hey, just remember, we can hurt you too.
If I was looking at it, so again, you might be right. Again, we're hypothetically here.
Even a broken clock's right twice a day.
What I think is, I think they're going to wait. So first off, I don't think they do it before we have a president, because that will 100% get Donald Trump elected. And the last thing they want to happen is Donald Trump to be elected. So I don't know. And then the other piece of it is I think they wait. Look, what we're doing, what the good thing that's happening to the United States of America because of this China-Taiwan thing is we're finally getting our shit together, and we are putting billions of dollars into getting our chip manufacturing here, right? So I think that what we've done is we've cut some deal behind the table that says, hey, we can't get our infrastructure built up till about 2027 or 2026 or whatever. And what we're going to do is, if you guys will hold off until then, we'll let you have it and we won't contest it as long as we have our infrastructure set up. But again, you have an interesting, I haven't heard that one, but if you wanted to really throw us into chaos, I do. Again,
hope.
I'm with you. I'm with you. I think it.
But if this is Vegas and we're at a sports bet, and you can take your bet, I'll take mine.
I think it fucks them though if they do that, because I think you want to 100% guarantee Donald Trump being our next president. China enter Taiwan, and I'm going to tell you something.
And here's and this is the only reason I say this. I'm not completely convinced it's going to be a Biden v. Trump election.
No, so here's what, if I was the Democrats, this is what I would do, right? First off, I think all of them suck up there right now. I think it is atrocious. I want to say this up front. If you don't start a conversation right now with the political atmosphere that we have, saying that they're all atrocious, then I'm done listening to you, right? So anyways, let's start with that. But I think what the Democrats do is 60 days out, they come in, Biden comes out and says, hey, my health has deteriorated. And Gavin Newsom comes in, and now the Republicans only have 60 days to beat Gavin Newsom.
Yeah, I think, well, so here there's, not that I wanted this to turn into a political podcast.
I know, then we can get
No. But
it's not.
I like playing it out too. I think you're right. I think it happens at the convention.
Oh, you do?
Because here's why. If it is going to be Gavin Newsom, that's how they get Kamala Harris out, because the Constitution says that the president and the vice president can't be from the same state. So if Biden steps down, if Biden, for whatever reason, his health, his faculties, insert thing here, they put Newsom up, then Newsom's got to bring someone else in. And who do you think
he brings in?
Well, if he's smart, he brings in Nikki Haley or a John Huntsman or someone who has like,
and you could get it.
Someone that, or if you really wanted to, Rob Kennedy.
No, gosh,
I don't think he would. But
oh gosh, no. We got Rob Kennedy. We got to stay away from him. He's like that dude. Like, did you see his list he came out with of who he would pick as vice president?
But look at like when Trump was saying who he was going to pick as vice president.
I'm with you.
Don't underestimate the ability for someone to sell a story rather than tell a story.
I like Mike Rowe posted yesterday that he's like, I was in the airport and I just seen that I popped up under under this, but I don't know. I mean, here's the great part is like everybody gets so politically charged in these things. Mm-hmm. And it's like, man, at the end of the day, like this is what makes our country different is it's we the people. Yeah. And at the end of the day, like, I don't care who's sitting in that seat up there. They can only do so much, right? Like at the end of the day, it's we the people. And at the point that things start to get real bad and the people want it to change, it will. Yeah. And so it's like, I think we should just like, it's a shit show. It's always been a shit show. Like in anybody in this generation that watches politics, the only difference in the shit show is the fact that we get to watch it.
Yeah. That's very true. Yeah.
Like go back and look at the history of presidents before.
Oh.
You know what I mean? Yeah. I will be honest. The only thing that I would love to see, I don't know why I laugh so hard at this. I would give anything to have this level of transparency and this level of media leaking when Bill Clinton's in office.
Oh, dude, dear God.
Could you imagine 50 Shades of Grey would be like nothing?
They would, I mean, oh God, just imagine. Lewinsky's the only one we know of.
Yeah. Well,
right? Or even Kennedy.
Yeah. I mean, Kennedy, right?
Kennedy, like, so? what was going on in that?
So come on, man. Like, I look at it, I'm like.
That's so funny.
You know what I mean? Like, I think it's just so funny. But,
I want to touch on the dash here in a second. But.
I didn't mean to turn the.
Oh, dude, I don't. Listen, this is why I do. When people are like, do you want to send me some questions? I'm like, no, I want the conversation to be as organic as possible. But are you involved with? Or let me rephrase it this way. When I was going through my suicidal ideation and my like depression, one of the things I really love seeing now is all of these different like Heroic Path to Light or Warriors Foundation or No Fallen Heroes or veteran organizations supporting other veterans and more like, there was Mission 22, but that was kind of just more about like raising awareness. Yeah,
that's like Mission 22. They're kind of like a chest workout.
Yeah, right. Let's like
do push-ups.
They'll have a WOD or
let's do push-up.
But there's all these different organizations now that are kind of, and it started like at Hopkins with the the
John
assisted
Hopkins,
therapy and the psilocybin work. Have you ever worked with any of those organizations? Have you?
So I've worked with vets.
Okay.
So vets is out of Dallas. Yeah.
The VET. The actual like vets organization. Mm-hmm. But what I wanted to ask you, if you're comfortable talking about it, like you got out, you're doing your fireman work. What was kind of like the tipping point that kind of?
I pulled a guy out of his car, at the Galleria in Bee Cave one day. And that was kind of like it was at that moment that like I was doing the stellate ganglion blocks. They were kind of the best in the town at the time. Dr. Mulvaney, like incredible doctor. He's got the Stellate Ganglion Block Institute and like, for PTSD, depression, anxiety, like I would recommend, like that is a huge tool that's out there in the toolbox.
Yeah, we'll link that.
And so I was doing those things. They were helping me a lot. I just couldn't get to, like, it also matters the doctor you go to, right? Like, and that's a big one for that. That's the problem with it. And Mulvaney's the best. And so I had a hard time getting a good block out here. So, and I couldn't get to DC all the time. So anyways, I was pulling out of the Galleria one day and it was, there's this you're pulling out and there's like the main road 71 there and it's like bumper to bumper traffic. Mm-hmm. The light's red and you could turn right on red. And so I'm there and this guy's behind me, but again, it's bumper to bumper traffic. And so I'm just waiting for the light to turn green. And this dude is like honking his horn and he opens his door. It literally opens the door in his car and jumps out, and he's like flipping me off. Like, he's like, are you fucking retarded? Like, all like saying these things. And dude, I'm trying to tell myself, don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it.
Is it just you in the car?
Just me in the car. And he opens the door, and I put that thing in park, and I got out, and he's like standing between his door and, like
he's like almost like in a protective.
Like he's like standing between his door, like flipping me off so he can jump back in his car real fast. And I come walking back there, and I guess I'm just walking towards him, and like I slam the door on him, and he's kind of caught in between his door, and I pull him out, and I slam his head off the hood of his car, and like I push him back in his car, and he pulls around me, like drives off. And then like I don't remember anything until about 2.5 miles down the road, and I'm still following him. And I was like, yeah, this is not okay. And now, while again, back to this whole point of the nail and the hammer, right? He was a nail that had obviously not ever been taught to not talk to people like this and to know your audience sometimes. Right. But again, like, what if there was a cop? Like, what if he had called the cops? And what was I going to do, right? Like, would I have stopped? Would I have got out? What if he'd pulled into his house and got a gun? I mean, all these things, like, I would have put so many people in so many terrible situations.
Right.
What if he'd had a gun in his car, right? I mean, you hear out here in Texas, you will get killed. And it's like, then I was justified. He should have shot me, right? Like he should have fucking shot me. He should have. The fact that I was following, you know what I mean? There was so many things. And like, if a cop pulled me over, what was I going to do? Right. And it was like, this was not that.
Yeah. The guy honking at me at a red light, it's not really a justification for stalking.
It's not.
Or hunting.
It's not, right? Like, it's not. Like, it's not. And like, and at the end of the day, like, what, I'm going to beat this guy up. Like, whoa, congratulations. Right. I became everything that I had lived my life to protect that guy from. And so I was like, man, I gotta do something. So I called Morgan Luttrell, and
great guy.
I said, what do I do? And he said, I'll tell you the date you leave. And so I left and went to vets hooked me up. I went to Mexico and so I did Ibogaine and 5-MeO DMT. And I mean, I'll be honest with you, like, I came back and I've never had anxiety since.
Yeah. But that's a dark.
Oh, listen, the Ibogaine is
that's a dark journey.
The Ibogaine's a tough one, right? Like it's a dark one. I appreciate it though. Look, I
think you need to be at a certain level for that to, that's not like
but I also think like, I'm going to be honest with it, when it comes to this psychedelic stuff, there's a fine line between therapy and being a drug addict.
Oh yeah.
Like I am not for doing these psychedelics recreationally.
No.
Like I am not, like, no. I'm not a proponent of it. I am not, like, if you're just trying to get high and have a good time and you're doing these drugs, then like understand that is not what I am like, I don't care what you do at your house, but I'm not an advocate for us us calling this therapy. Like, look, call it recreational or call it therapy. But like, if you're not doing it,
it's only therapy if you're with a medical practitioner and a forensic psychologist and you're doing the work.
Yeah. And if you're
otherwise you're doing drugs with your friends.
Yes. 100%. And like, yes. And there's a very fine line on that.
Right. There's a difference between you had back surgery and the doctor gives you Oxycontin and going to your local like dealer and like crushing it up so you can snort it.
Yes.
Like there's.
Yes. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so
it's just like the weapon and the human, the car and the human. It's like.
Yeah. And so like for me, like that's where like I want to be careful on that because, you start seeing these churches fire up, and I'm going to tell you something. I'm a big proponent. Like I'm helping pass legislation here. Like I'm moving the needle on it because we have to get it passed by the laws, right? Like for this to ever, like, look, we can.
Well, did you see yesterday? They just put out that there's a new special one that.
They're doing research on it, right? So they're allowing it to be researchable, right? And so for me, and look, and let me say this up front. I also want to take, because I've got to be very careful on these stance, because people will, they take these things hard. Look, I'm a big proponent of, I think all drugs should be legal, right? So if we can find a way to make sure that police can ensure that you're not intoxicated, like if there's a way for them to make sure that if you're behind the wheel, that they can ensure that you're not high on something or you're not putting my kids at danger. Look, I don't care what you do at your house. If you want to do heroin at your house and you're by yourself or you're around people who want to do that with you and you just want to do heroin all day long, I don't care, right? I don't care what you do at your home. At the point that you have children, at the point that you are getting in a car, at the point that you go in public, whole different ball game, because now you got a problem with all of us.
Yeah, I think it should be treated like alcohol.
100%. So like when I say like, oh, I don't look at, doing mushroom, I really don't care what you do it in your own home, right?
Right. Like if you legalize cocaine today, I don't really know that many more people are going to be doing cocaine.
Honestly, I don't either, right? And all of these things, right? And so if you want to do that, have at it. But
also, the fact that people are still doing cocaine with like all the fentanyl that's out there, like blows my mind.
Yeah, and you know what? And we see it like when a bad batch comes through.
Oh my God!
When a bad batch comes through, like we're running ODs all the time. So my thing is, but yeah, back to the assisted therapy. I mean, I think that like you want to talk about the most powerful healing thing that we could do for all people is find a way to legalize this and to educate people on this. Like you want to talk about putting hope back in people. Like you want to talk about letting people see what good is and like letting them feel good about themselves, like not feel good, but actually see good in themselves. This is what it was, we got to do that. Like the problem with the world today is that the media, social media, all these majority of people that are, we don't have a problem of too many bad people. That's not the issue. Like we don't have an abundance of, I believe that most of the people in the world are still good.
I completely agree.
And I believe that most of the people in the world want to be good and do good. And they all want to be part of something bigger than themselves. That was what gave us the most powerful as Americans, is because we believed that we were part of the greatest country on the face of the planet, and that was when we were the toughest. What I see is that most people just don't know how to be good. All these electronics, everything that's on the internet, a lot of it, and the easiest stuff to find is made by extinctionists. Mm-hmm. And extinctionists are nothing more than people who say that all people are bad. They're the people who take away all your hope. They take away all your reasoning to be good and to do things the right way and to be better, because they just say that things can't be fixed and they're never going to be solved. And you hear this all the time when it comes to politics, with the way the world is all day long. They try to paint this picture of bad, right? And the only reason that people are so sucked into bad is because they want to see it, to know about it, because they're scared of it, right? And so like that's why good doesn't sell, because people still know that they're good, right? And so I think we got to put hope back in people. We got to put hope that things can get better, because that's ultimately what's going to drive people to continue to be good people, right? And so yeah, that assisted therapy. I mean, the Ibogaine was so hard. It was the hardest thing I've gone through. And then the 5-MeO DMT, I call it, you had to go to hell to appreciate heaven.
Yeah. Have you ever heard the religion is for people who are afraid of hell? Spirituality is for people who have been there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And well, you don't want me to go down that road. That's a whole other road. I
save it for the book.
Yeah. I agree with that. Right. Like, yeah, heaven, religion is for sure. It's for people who, I've never heard it put that, but that is the best way I've ever heard it put. Yeah, I'm spiritual, right? Like, we get mixed up. There's three dimensions of all of us, right? Your physical, your mental, and you're emotional.
Yeah.
You know, and that emotional is, I mean, it's ultimately what God is. It's what the Bible is, right? It's the emotional aspect. It's you know, hope. All those things are hope, right?
Yeah.
And so hope is your emotional intelligence.
Oh yeah.
Hope is your emotional maturity more. That's a better phrase for it. But like, you know, when you take away hope, you kill everybody. And I use this analogy. Have you heard about the mice with the scientists?
Yeah, with the
throw them in the water.
cocaine.
No, no, different one.
The cocaine in the water. Oh, okay.
No, in the water.
Yeah, so it's like, it was basically about like, will you do something just for the euphoria, or will you do something for survival? And you'll always choose the euphoria.
So yeah, well, so the one I was talking about is they threw these mice in this bucket of water, and I think it was like 5 or 6 minutes afterwards, the mice said, "Fuck it." And they just started to drown. And like, so the scientists reached in, they grabbed these mice, they set them on the side, they let them catch their breath, they let them, you know, kind of recover a little bit, and then they tossed them back in the water. And they swam for
I
like,
think they do this with the seals, right?
yeah. So then they swam for like 48 hours. And the only difference was
The hope of being rescued.
the hope of being rescued, that things could get better, that eventually they would get pulled out and put back on the side of the bank. And that's the thing that we're missing in America right now. Look, America is not new to hard times. It's just the fact that the people that we have today, and what's crazy is the people we have today, they're the smartest we've ever had. These people that are here today, they process information. They are literally the smartest human beings that have ever walked the planet. They have more resources at their fingertips than they've ever had.
Oh yeah, if you could be born at like any time in history, like right now is like the golden ticket.
Yeah, I mean, I always talk about, you know, like, oh, things suck today. It's like our grandparents were praying to have what we have today. And so it's like, but the problem is we have to put hope back in people, that people are still good. We need the courage of people to shift conversations, right? Not avoid conversations, not have hard conversations, but we need people to shift conversations. We need people to shift and tell each other the truth, right? Like, the only thing that's going to get us to where we are operating at full capacity is if we have hope and we love each other. And I talk about, you know, my Medal of Honor story is, when people ask about it, I'm like, it's not about a badass. It's not about heroism. It's not about anything other than it is the example of one thing. It's a guy that loved others more than he loved himself. Mm-hmm. And he thought that he could make the situation just a little bit better by what he had. And he was willing to do that at the cost of his own life. And that's what it is, an example to what all of us as human beings are capable of. If we believe in a cause bigger than ourselves, and we love others than we love our own selves, and we are willing to do whatever it takes to help make people who are suffering and people who are in a bad spot better by what we have. You know, I live life by one simple phrase: if we can, we must. Mm-hmm. If we can help somebody, we must help somebody, because not everybody can help that person.
Right.
It's a really simple way. And it's not about, do they deserve it? It's not about, do they deserve what they're going through? They might have made dumb decisions, but none of us are like, all of us have had somebody go above and beyond and give us what we didn't deserve and help us with what we didn't deserve, in order for us to be to where we're at.
If you can, we must should be like the new Dash t-shirt.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm
putting it on my Ironman
oh, that'd be good.
Trisuit. Yeah.
How is Dash going?
It's good, man. It's good. You know, it's about a way of life. You know, we've seen a lot, like
I love the there's 2 dates on your tombstone. Yeah. The day you're born, the day you die.
It just resonated with me, right? Like, I mean, we've seen, we don't always get to see the best. We don't get to view the world through this bright lens all the time, right? Like, sometimes we have to see the nasty side of it, right? Which is fine, because honestly, it's an honor for me, right? And so to be able to do that. And so for me, it's about the Dash, right? It's about, on your tombstone, we've lost a lot of guys. We see a lot of bad things, but on this tombstone that when we all are gone, what's going to be left is that name and the day you were born and the day you died, which are really the two. If you think about it, most people live their lives worried about those two dates. Mm-hmm. They spend their lives celebrating their birthdays, and they spend their lives trying not to die. Yeah. And they're the only 2 days in your entire life that aren't 24 hours and you have no control of. But think about how much time people put into both of those, right? What matters is that dash in between. And it's not about the cars. It's not about how much money you have. It's about what are people going to say about you after you're gone? What are people going to say about you the day you die or at your funeral? What are they going to remember you by, right? And while we don't get to control how long that dash is, we get to control what that dash looks like. And really, it's going to come down to ultimately how many people you can help. Who can you help? Like, how can you make the world a better place? I go back to my whole thing of, do you want to be right or do you want to be effective? And if being effective and your goal and your purpose is to make the world a better place, quit worrying about being right and start worrying about how you can help move the needle to give people hope and to remind people of how great they are. I think about it all the time is like, every time you pass somebody, you have an opportunity to engage with them, like good morning, good afternoon, just that piece of it. You don't know what they're going through when they go home behind those doors. You could be the only positive thing that they get to see that entire day. So every person that you pass, if you don't say something to them like good morning, it doesn't matter what they say to you. They could flip you off back. What does it matter? You might be the only good thing that they get to experience that entire day.
Researching this book, when I was looking at like active shooters and school shooters and things like that, the number one thing that stopped someone from hurting themselves or from hurting others was a random act of kindness from another.
Yeah.
Because sometimes that was just, to your point, that kindness gave them the hope that they needed. I feel seen. You recognized me. You saw me. You gave my life purpose. You gave my life meaning. Thank you for seeing me.
Yeah.
I can go one more day.
Yeah. And think about that. Think about that. All of us, look, suicidal thoughts are normal. There's not a person that goes through life that a suicidal thought does not cross their mind. Suicide, acting on that is where it doesn't become normal, right? And so, but think about how many times that, and that's where look, I've lost more guys to suicide than I have to combat, right?
Same.
While and this isn't very popular, but I'm not going to back off this. While suicide is the most unbecoming of a warrior that ever exists, it doesn't mean that they're not a warrior up until that point, but courage is going and asking for help. Courage is not putting that unknown on everybody else, of taking that burden of struggle and putting it on everybody else. Courage is getting help and looking in the mirror and saying, hey, I need fucking help. And I'm going to do that so I can get others through it.
Well, and that's, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
Yeah, no.
That's something that I really, getting back to what we were talking about, when we first got started, we were kind of marketed this vulnerability is weakness thing.
Let me tell you why. Oh, keep going.
No, I was just going to say, we were kind of marketed that vulnerability is a weakness. And what I really appreciate about guys like you and others who are, kind of putting it out there. Hey, I struggled. I felt this way. I kind of vulnerability. It's only a weakness when it's not shared. But sharing that vulnerability is actually a source of strength, because that's where you get the compassion.
It's the obligation.
It's 100%.
It's the obligation, right? And for me, I believe, and I don't know, and this will probably get me canceled tomorrow, but, for some reason, and I believe it's the nonprofits that did this, when I was in, killing yourself was like it wasn't acceptable. You know what I mean? It wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that like the nonprofits came in, they were doing great work with helping guys that were wounded in combat, guys that were dying in combat. They were doing a great job supporting, NGOs are these nonprofits are very, very important and critical to help supporting the role of
100%.
of the military. But I think what happened is whenever the war kind of slowed down and people stopped dying and people stopped getting hurt in combat, they had built up so big and they needed to keep their rating going, and they needed to keep their influence and their money going. So what they did is they shift their marketing from it just being to help guys in combat to now the wounded warriors have became the guys that are killing themselves. And so killing yourself was as honorable as dying in combat.
It was almost reframed as seppuku.
It was a remarket. It was genius on them. But let me tell you this generation is still killing themselves because they are seeing it as acceptable, because that's the example my generation left for them. And we got to call it what it is. Killing yourself is the most unbecoming of a servant, of a warrior that there is. Getting help is ultimately what a warrior does. We told our stories in this way. In this way of that it was cool, that it was badass, which is good because the generation needs to live up to it, but we've got to be honest and real about the struggles on it. And that's going to be the most impactful thing that we can do to help humanity.
Yeah. I had a veteran, it's kind of a fucking hard thing to hear, but I know I said it and I took it how he meant it. But if I had killed myself, my brothers would have turned their back on me when I got to heaven.
Yeah, they would have.
Yeah.
And listen, as somebody who has attempted suicide as well, I am thankful I didn't, because I would have been remembered as the 22 a day, not the warrior that I am.
Right. Yeah.
And
also you'd be up in heaven right now looking down at where you are now, and you'd be fucking pissed, because I know I'd be.
You know what I mean? Think about that.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
And so again though, we've got to call it what it is. We can't, just because does it feel good? Does it feel good to think about, I know some bad dudes that killed themselves. Like when you talk in combat, they were the guys you wanted. They died as fucking cowards. And I would never want that.
No.
You know what I mean?
No,
and I know it sounds terrible. Like they're warriors. But again, I've got this new phrase that and the only reason I say it now is because, like what you just said, there's no doubt to me that they're sitting up in heaven and they're like, man, what a fucking idiot I was. You know what I mean? And so why did I do that? You know what I mean? And I believe that. And on the backside of it, man, I'll tell you, I don't want this next generation to think that that's the way of the warrior, because they want to live up to be the way of the warrior.
Yeah.
And we don't want them to keep doing this. We've got to stop it, and we've got to get help. Courage is getting help. Courage is reaching out. And look, talking about depression, anxiety, and PTSD. Look, it is 2024. If you're listening to this and you are having to drink alcohol to go to sleep every night, it's not normal and it's not sustainable. You need to go get help. Go talk to somebody, right? Go talk to somebody. If you know somebody who's drinking to go to bed every night and you don't say something to them, you're wrong. Yeah, it might not be your problem, but it is your problem. If you know somebody struggling and you're not there to help them, then you're not their real friend. You don't care about them. So what I tell people now is when they come up to me and they're like, my so-and-so, they committed suicide. I mean, they even tried to change the narrative of this. I had some people come out and they're trying to change the wording of it. It's like, oh, it's not committed suicide. It's they died by suicide. I'm like, no. They fucking committed it. They did it. Period. But what I'll say, man, is I look at people now who are my family member or whatever died, from suicide. And I look at them and I go, I'm sorry they did that to you. Sorry they did that to you. We stepped up so that we could take the pain off of our loved ones And so they wouldn't have to see that.
Oh.
And then to come back and then to pass it off on them that way. I see mothers destroyed for the rest of their lives. I see fathers, marriages destroyed for the rest of their lives. I see wives, husbands destroyed for the rest of their lives. The rest of their lives that they exist here, destroyed from the guilt of what could I have done better. I see kids growing up without fathers and mothers because of this.
Yeah.
Courage is fulfilling the obligations and fulfilling the roles that we have. And by doing that, it's okay to go ask for help. And that is what true courage and being a warrior really is.
So say we all.
Right?
100%, man. I mean, one of the things that I really had to work through when I was going through a period was just that, the guilt factor. So I would have erased my pain, but I would have given that pain to so many other people.
It's the most selfish thing you can do.
Yeah.
But us as veterans in the space, and we're going to get pushed. I'll get pushed back on this, but I'm telling you, us as veterans in the space, we got to have courage to get back to truth. We got to have courage, honest truth.
Like Jocko's, like,
yep. Like I tell you, I loved my guys. Like I loved them that killed themselves. I loved them. Chris Chamberlain, Brinker, my team leader fucking killed himself. Mm-hmm. I would have done anything for him. I'd have done anything for him. And man, it's so sad that such good people chose to do that. And the pain that they put on everybody is terrible, right? And I'm glad they got rid of their pain, but there was another way to get rid of their pain. And instead they just, honestly, the only way that we take true pain out of the world is by healing it on our own. Yeah. When we don't heal it on our own, honestly, man, we just pass it on and amplify it to the people around us.
And I think that it's always been that way, but we just didn't always have a way. We didn't know how to do it. Like that wasn't shown to us. I knew guys who had committed suicide. Yeah. I knew guys who were living in the same pain I was. I didn't know anyone who had come out the other side.
Then that's the obligation.
But that's our obligation now.
That's why we need again, all you had. Yeah, we had abundance of broken people, mm-hmm. but we didn't have what right looked like. And think about this in the military. Imagine if before you joined the military, you had only had spoken with the guys that never made it.
Right. Would
you have thought you could make it?
No.
Exactly. And so why do you think all the hope goes away, right? If the guys that showed up to SEAL training before and were recruited by the guys that failed, they would never have a hope they could make it through it.
Right. No, you're exactly right.
And that's why we've got to go out, but we don't, but the guys that made it through it, they don't look back and say, oh, it's easy. Oh, you feel like quitting, you should quit. It's okay. They don't do that. Yeah. They push them to the standard. They hold the standard. They don't drop the standard because they know that if you want to get through it, you have to achieve the standard. And that's what'll make you be a SEAL and have the confidence to be a SEAL. It's the same thing back with this mental health piece of it. Like, no, it's not going to be easy. But again, alcohol is not going to fix it for you, right? Like we can't.
You literally have to choose the hard.
It's going to be hard.
Yeah. It's losing weight. It's quit drinking. It's like but you have to do the work. Chris Williamson has that great quote. It's like the magic you are looking for is on the other side of the work you're avoiding.
Yep. And guess what?
I would get that tattooed across my chest if it wouldn't look so silly.
But guess what? What I'm going to tell you is the work is worth it.
100%.
It is fucking worth it. I wake up every single day, and this is by far an understatement. And I live the best day of my life every single day that I wake up.
Yeah.
Like it's worth it. It is so worth it. But we've got to, the only way to get here is by holding people accountable, by truth, and by pushing each other to get through the hard things and to really get through them, not cover them up, but to look at them and to face them in order to get to where you can have the best day ever. And it is fucking worth it.
I fucking love it. This has been a lot of fun. I end every podcast by asking like 5 questions.
All right, perfect.
All right. First one's going to be specifically for you.
Okay.
There's a phrase like heavy lies the crown.
Mm-hmm.
How heavy lies the medal?
You know, the heaviest piece of it is the fact that all that medal says is that I know what right looks like, and I just have to mimic right every single day. And so for me, you know, like the medal is I mean, it's heavy because of the people who've wore it before me. Right? Like the guys that died.
Gordon.
I mean, gosh, like you know, Barcelona. I mean, you go down the list, right? And so to be able to live up to that is, and I don't know what, you know, really, what are you living up to, right? I don't know, you know, but it's like to be able to make sure that you honor those guys, right? So I think that that's probably the heaviest piece. You know, the other piece is, especially this day and age, is, you know, man, if I don't get it right, I represent the next generation of veterans. Like, if I don't get it right, like my mistakes can affect way more than just me. And so I have to get it right. Now, I'm not saying I always get it right, but I have to be real and I have to do the best that I can. I have to continue to improve, to always try to make a difference and to move mountains to ensure that the next generation is better than we are. And so that's probably the heaviest piece of it. I don't wear the medal. You know, I'm not a Medal of Honor recipient. I'm a United States Marine that received the Medal of Honor. And, you know, today I'm a civilian and I'm a father, and, you know, that medal doesn't define me. You know, if I suck today, it's because I suck. I don't get to justify me sucking today by the medal that I earned yesterday. And so that medal is nothing more than just the testament of the results of the actions that I know what it takes to believe in a cause and to love others. And so it just means that I know what that looks like. And so it's about going out and making the world a better place. So yeah, it's heavy, but it's also an honor.
100%.
Yeah.
Other than your own book, is there a book that you recommend or gift most often?
Yeah. I mean, you know, I like Discipline Equals Freedom, right?
Great book.
I mean, it's a great book. You know what I mean? Jocko Willink. Jocko's such an incredible dude. But yeah, Discipline Equals Freedom.
Yeah, we've been in the same room, but we've never met.
Yeah, I love Jocko.
He kind of looks like the old Roman Spartan days of old, like the buck helmet and the fucking, you know, like Battle of Thermopylae is like his legacy. Oh, he'd be a Viking for sure.
For sure. For sure.
They say that, you know, the way we kind of like see ourselves, if we were to see ourselves through someone else's eyes, we may not like recognize ourselves.
Yeah.
If you were to use a couple words or a sentence to kind of describe how you want to occur to other people.
Yeah. I mean, empathetic, authentic, hard but fair. Right. Yeah, I mean, yeah.
I ask this one to everyone. Aliens, fact or fiction?
Define alien.
You define alien.
So I think
it could be there's little green men in Area 51. There could be a lizard kingdom underneath the planet. There could be something out there in the. I think everyone can agree that there's something else out there that's for it to be just us would be a little silly.
So you know it. You know, everywhere you look, it talks about humans creating what destroys them. I think aliens are ultimately what the robots of AI are going to be. So do I think that yes, I think aliens are now existing. But I think that it is, I think that it's what we are creating.
Area 51 is more R&D than Little Green Men.
Yeah, look, I don't believe that I don't have enough faith in human beings to be able to keep this all under wraps.
Oh, listen, dude.
You know what I mean? Like I guess
when I was in high school and college, I was a huge X-Files fan. I was like, I'm going to be in the government. I'm going to get, and then like you get in the army, you're like the PL can't take a leak without the entire platoon knowing it. It's like it's impossible for them to keep this a secret.
So I look. Do I think that there's life other places? Like, well, 100%. Like, I mean, I just think it'd be crazy for us not to. But what I do believe is like all this stuff that's being made up right now. Now, I don't think that anybody's lying. Like, I think these people who are coming out and talking about these things, I believe that they believe what they're saying. But I don't know that they have all the puzzle pieces together with it. And I just don't believe that we have for sure aliens. And I just think that when you say that there's aliens there and we've seen them and we've interacted with them or anything like that, and that humans know that, you're giving too much credit to humans, especially this day and age, that they could keep that a secret.
Yeah. What's the old Ben Franklin? Like 3 people can keep a secret if 2 are dead.
Yeah, exactly right. And so I don't know, man. I'm not saying that there's a lot of things in the world that we see or that happen that don't make sense, but usually it's just because we don't know everything.
2 more, and we'll get you out of here. There's a time machine. You can go back at any point in time, spend some time, come back to the future. Where are you going?
Man, I don't know. Like, I don't know. Like the first piece would be, and this is going to sound dumb, but like I mean, I would go back to hang out with my grandfather, right? Like I would go back to spend time with him. So that would be my.
I love that answer. Yeah. Everyone else is like, I want to see the pyramids. Yeah. I want to go walk with Jesus. You want to go back to your grandfather?
Yeah, I go back to hang out with my grandfather, right? Like he was.
Did you get to spend time with him?
I did. Yeah, incredible guy. So I would go back to there. But if you said like just.
No, I love your answer.
As like anywhere, I mean, dude, I'd like to go back and like. I mean, I'd like to go back and chase dinosaurs.
No shit.
But they'd probably chase me, but yeah.
Yeah. I don't think there was humans and dinosaurs at the same time. But
I know.
You'd be the only one that'd be like, what the F is this?
Yeah.
He looks tasty.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, imagine me riding a dinosaur.
I can imagine.
Like a T-Rex.
I don't see, I see you like on one of the ones that were like, that would fly around and you just got like a harness.
Yeah.
Like you're just like bank left. Like you're like, like Top Gun.
Yeah.
Yeah. I could definitely see that.
Yeah.
You're in high school.
Yeah.
Okay. You're playing ball. You have plans to go play football. Mm-hmm. That Marine recruiter is never there.
Yeah.
He never challenged. He never says you don't have what it takes to be Marine. Right. It's a parallel universe.
Yeah.
You're going in a completely different direction. Yeah. What are you doing
today or then?
No, like if that was a sliding door moment where that Marine recruiter was never in your high school, so you entering the Marines was never even a consideration.
I don't know.
You wind up, you play college ball.
What do you get your degree? I fail out. I mean, to be honest with you,
come on.
I mean, to be honest with you, man, like, you know, I'm probably still sitting in my hometown, you know, with doing farming or doing who knows what, right? I mean, I mean, it's just, you know, you talked about earlier about taking those chances about, you know, and
but you would also need the exposure to know what those chances look like. Right?
Yeah. I mean, you know, it's only, because you're not going to learn anything new in that town. Mm. You know what I mean? Like they're not evolving, right? Like it's not
Kentucky.
And small, you know, the ideas are still, you know what I mean? Like they're so they are evolving, but they're so slow to evolve, right? Like things move real slow there. And so I just, you know, I just don't think that, I mean, honestly, I am sitting on a farm.
You've watched Justified?
Yeah.
Remember like Raylan Givens gets like, he goes out and like sees the world, but like the Walter Goggins, he's like, he never leaves. Yeah. He never leaves the hollow.
Yeah. And that would probably be me, right? I mean, I'd probably be farming and working an 8 to 5, you know, nothing against it, but I'm saying, I mean, I mean, it's honest living, right? Like who knows? It might be better, right? I don't know. Maybe I'm the idiot, you know? And so, but I'm definitely not where I'm at.
Yeah.
I'm still in Kentucky, sitting on a farm.
Thank you.
No, man.
For all this.
Thank you. This is awesome.
People want to learn more.
Yeah.
Instagram, website.
Yeah. Dakota Meyer, 0317. That's my Instagram. That's where I'm at the most. Real time. Yeah. I mean, that's it.
We'll put it all in the show notes.
Hell yeah, man. Appreciate you. Thank you.
Appreciate you.
Thank you. Appreciate you, man.
Cheers.